All right. What a rigged World Series game one last night. I'm just going to start this video off with a little clip from before the game even starts, and just listen to what they say in this intro. They even tell you the game is scripted with pride. Scripted with pride. I'll just try to play out one more time. Scripted with pride. What are they scripting with pride? What are they scripting? So anyway, we've talked about how it's the 111th World Series. New York adds up to 111. Some other things I'll mention later, but just want to point out some of this ridiculousness of the coding. So the Royals pitch first, whatever, and on the 11th pitch in the first inning, kind of like 1-1-1, the half of the inning is over, and then it goes to the bottom of the first. But just to prove it here, it's Volquez's 11th pitch. And I know it's hard to see here. I had to record this with my webcam. But it also says Daniel Murphy's batting average going into this game is .421, which is interesting, and I'll talk a little bit. I have a theory that this might actually be somewhat of the Church of England versus the Catholic Church theme that they're trying to do. Queen Elizabeth adds up to the same thing as New York Mets. She was born on .421, just like Murphy's average and whatnot. And then I'll show you some other stuff later, but wanted to point out the 11 pitches in the first, so the 1-1-1 of the 111th World Series. And then, of course, when the Royals get up to bat, the first pitch is hit for an in-the-park home run, scoring a run. So it's first pitch, first inning, 1 run, 1-1-1 in the 111th World Series. Ridiculous. So then there's a blackout, or the power outage, whatever you want to call it. Not the lights at the stadium, but the power truck to the broadcast goes out. So we talked about blackout, I don't know how many times in previous videos, but anyway, here, just watch it. So the power goes out when they're talking about Rob Lowe and Fred Savage, and later on they joke about it's the curse of Rob Lowe and Fred Savage. And it's just interesting because we've talked about the curse of the Billy Goat, the curse of the Bambino that actually affects the Mets from the 1986 World Series. Also, how ridiculous is it that Hosmer at first base missed the ground ball, just like the curse of the Bambino on Bill Buckner in the 1986 World Series? Why would they re-mimic that or whatever? The funny thing is, I've been talking about mirrors and how this Cubs got swept instead of the Cubs sweeping, and they're mirroring things. Well, since the Royals won, technically they're kind of mirroring or doing the opposite of what happened in the 1986 World Series. But just pointing it out, curse of Rob Lowe and Fred Savage adds up to 122. That number we've seen a ton this year. Princess Charlotte was born on 5/2. The 122nd day is 5/2. The 52nd Pride is 239. It's the 239th year of the United States. Tons of other stuff, but just wanted to point that out really quick. And also remember, in the first inning, in the park home run, this is the guy who should have caught the ball. There's no reason that he didn't catch it. He totally rigged. He didn't even try to catch it. Number 52. Go figure. Anyway, after the broadcast is cut or whatever, they bring you back in. For one, they show you the ump, number 52. Interesting. But it's 1-1 with 1 out, so the 111. Also, it was after the 47th pitch. Very interesting. considering the word fourth inning adds up to 74. This happened in the fourth inning. The mirror of 47. Also, delay is 47. And on Zach's blog here, he even talked about Joe Buck and saying the truck went out, and in Gematria, truck went out is 47. I also want to point out, I remember back in 2013, we were talking about something to do with, I can't even remember what it was, but we talked about a blackout on the 4th of July, and there actually was a blackout at exactly midnight on the 4th of July in 2013 at Kauffman Stadium. It was Cleveland Indians, whatever, so 7-4. It was exactly at midnight of 7-4 on the 237th year of the United States, and the power just so happened to, the start of the game was delayed 2 hours, 37 minutes by a stubborn rain cloud, blah, blah, blah. The delay caused more problems in the 7th when the clock hit midnight. A glitch in the stadium computer caused about half of the lights to go out, and it took 12 minutes for them to cool enough to come back on and allow play to resume. So literally, the first delay was 2 hours, 37 minutes, and then at exactly 7-4, the nation's Day of Independence, 237 years after, the half the lights went out, and then they resumed at 12:12. What are the odds of that? The 12 and the 12, it goes with the 144, 12 times 12, 12 tribes of Israel, tons of other stuff with that. Also wanted to point out the truck went out in simple gematria, adds to 191, a number I've been mentioning a ton over and over. Chicago Cubs adds up to 91. Even the word mirror adds up to 91. But also, this game went to the 14th inning. The game ended in the 14th inning, and 14th inning adds up to 91. Another super significant thing here. So this article talks about how long the power went out and when it went out. It says it lasted from 9:19 p.m. to 9:23 p.m. This number right here, for one, it's 91 and 19. It also ties in with Queen Elizabeth. Queen Elizabeth, tons of 26s with her. This is the 262nd day if you do it as a date. 923 is when Pope Francis came to the White House at 923. 923 is the 266th day. Pope Francis is the 266th Pope. Also, that means the outage was only for 4 minutes. 4 minutes in the 4th inning. And the only reason that the Royals stayed in this game to go to the 14th inning was because Alex Gordon hit a home run in the bottom of the 9th to make the score 4-4. Alex Gordon, number 4. What are the odds of that? 4-4. The 8th pitch in the 9th inning. Queen Elizabeth is 89 years old this year. Also interesting to point out that 8-9 this year, August 9th, was her 63rd year, 6th month, and 3rd day of being the queen. And see, she's a royal. I don't know if this is photoshopped. I assume it's photoshopped. But just interesting, I talked about last year how it was the Royals versus the Giants. It was like the Titanomachy or whatever. But yeah, just interesting. This picture would be on Facebook. Also interesting, Royal Blue adds up to 111, kind of like the 111th World Series. Queen Elizabeth was born on April 21st, 1926, 89 years ago. April 21st is the 111th day of the year. Also, the last time the Royals won the World Series was in 10/27, 1985, so whatever, 30 years from yesterday. And Queen Elizabeth was 59 years old, 6 months and 6 days. And I have made a ton of videos about Pope Francis and Queen Elizabeth. I mean, just tons of them. There's so much information, so many things that connect to both of them. But 59 years was interesting because Kansas City Royals adds up to 59, but Pope Francis also adds up to 59. That's also a kill number, so who knows, but Pope Francis also adds up to 122, just like the curse of Rob Lowe and Fred Savage. Interesting too, Rob Lowe, I was just thinking about it. He's like the bad guy in the movie Tommy Boy. And I talked about the connection from Tommy Boy to the Nebraska Cornhuskers, and literally all of this stuff goes together. Interesting, too, we've talked about the Back to the Future stuff. Michael J. Fox even adds up to 106. If the Royals win the World Series, it'll be their 106th win of the season. He also adds up to 52, which I talked about a tiny bit earlier. Also, think about it. The blackout was because of Fox. That's Michael J. Fox. And I was thinking about Queen Elizabeth, and on Back to the Future in 2015 on the newspaper, it literally says Queen Diana something. And Queen Diana adds up to 91, just like Chicago Cubs, just like Mirror, just like Truck went out. Another interesting thing to point out is that the Back to the Future Day 1021 on the Julian calendar is actually November 3rd on the Gregorian calendar, so maybe Back to the Future Day hasn't really happened. Maybe they're just fooling us and they're using the Gregorian date. That's also the date, even before I even thought of this or knew this. It's the day that I said I think the World Series might end because we've been seeing a lot of 113. Also interesting, I've talked about Obama winking at 106 and iPad Goat. Tons of other stuff, but Obama's 54th birthday to 11/3 is a span of 91 days. I also had this video from July 18th here where I talked about how I think Field of Dreams predicted a possible Subway Series, the Yankees versus Mets. Obviously, it's not a Subway Series, but the Yankees did make it. And I can't even remember all of it. It was something to do with Moonlight Graham, played for the 1922 Giants. And that year there was a Subway Series. This movie came out in 1989. Like I said, the Queen was 89 years old. Or the Queen was 63 in 1989. And this movie came out on her birthday. And then later that year, it was a Subway Series. It was the Oakland A's versus the San Francisco Giants. It was the year that there was the earthquake. And then they remade the day that there was the earthquake was October 17th. And they remade the game up on October 27th. Kind of like yesterday. Kind of like the 333rd day of Philadelphia. It's also the last day that Back to the Future ends on October 27th when the train destroys the time machine and the Kansas City Royals won the World Series that day. Interesting, too, to point out, this movie is about the 1919 Chicago Black Sox. So literally the 19 and 91 stuff I've been talking about. 1919. I even have a video on that from a really long time ago. Also, as I'm thinking about it, when they go to find Moonlight Graham later on after that game or whatever, they have to go to Minnesota. And then we just had Flip Saunders who died. And I made a 3-part video talking about how that ties into the Teen Wolf and whatever, Lupercalia. And interesting because Lupercalia is about celebrating the wolf that suckled Romulus and Remus. And the death of Remus or whatever. They founded Rome, or Romulus founded Rome. And the city was founded on April 21st, 421, the same day Queen Elizabeth was born. And of course, Rome and the Pope and whatnot, it all ties in together. Back to the Future Part 2 even came out in 1989. And before I get too far off the subject, I've mentioned the 63, a decent amount with Queen Elizabeth. Interesting, last night, this guy's dad died, and they didn't tell you until after he was done pitching. He's number 36. His dad died at the age of 63. Last night he allowed 3 runs in 6 innings, 36. And I'm going to have to make a part 2. There's some other footage I want to show from the game. A bunch more I want to talk about, so I'll just see you in part 2.